I'm Ian from WLUW, and I'm here with. You want to introduce yourself for us?
Yes, I'm Nolan Potter from Nolan Potter's Nightmare Band in Austin, Texas.
Thanks so much for
hmm
sitting down with us and inviting us to your lovely home. We
Absolutely, yeah, welcome.
really appreciate it. So I want to start out by talking to you about Honey Tales from the Library of the Occult.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, the latest official release, I guess. You got some newer ones
Yeah,
on Bandcamp,
it
but
became official unofficially. We
yeah.
didn't really, it was like a commission to do this cool series that Library of the Occult has been doing over the last few years. And I was like, yeah, that sounds great, but I guess I misread the appetite for vinyl that our fans have.
Mm,
And they're like, oh my God, they have a new record out. I wasn't thinking like that. I was like, this is like a side project. Like, I
yeah.
love doing like scoring and soundtrack, all that kind of stuff. So any opportunity to do stuff like that, I'm like, this is great.
Mm,
We'll just put it under the Nightmare Band name because I collaborated with other Nightmare Band members.
mm.
And then people were like, you've got a new LP out. I was like, oh yeah, I guess I guess we do. And they all sold out very quickly. So
Mm.
yeah, not super available anymore. But yeah, that was a really fun project.
Mm. How
Um,
did it come to be? How'd you link up with those people?
I'd never heard of him before, and they'd heard of us, I guess, and sent me an email, and I looked into everything he was doing, and it's all based on like old British '70s horror movies, folk horror, which is I love that stuff so much, and it was just a no-brainer. They sent me the story, I was like, I'm so into this.
Mm.
And then we got to like kind of collaborate on who was going to narrate it and how to do the music with the narration and everything. And yeah, it was a really fun project.
Nice.
hmm
Yeah, so I did see that you were initially like interested in being like a film composer is
Yeah,
how you got interested
absolutely.
in music and that I was gonna ask you this, but I learned it. The first song you learned to play was the Star Wars theme song
Yeah,
on piano.
yeah,
That's
absolutely.
amazing. What kind of drew you to wanna like compose for film or?
I mean, I think like popular music was not a big thing in my home growing up. We were very like a very religious family, but very music oriented. So it was always church music. My mom was a piano teacher, so we'd always have music in the house. And yeah, I mean, I got into Star Wars before I can remember. And John Williams has been such a huge influence on me. But just the way that the music works with the images and stuff, it was like it's it's like the first sort of like what's the word I'm looking for? Like an epiphany, you know what
Mm,
I mean? I was like, whatever this is, I wanted like I didn't picture that the music was in a separate world than the image, you know what I mean? Like when you're a
mm,
kid, it's hard to separate that sort of like it was all happening at once, like imagining that the characters are listening to this while this is taking place. You know what I mean? I was
yeah.
like, it fascinated me. It still does today. And I always am picturing like as I'm working on a song, like the movie of the song kind of comes into focus as I'm working on it. And yeah,
Mm.
I picture all of my stuff as being soundtrack to something.
Yeah, that was something I wanted to talk to you about is like the differences that you find between writing a song like for Music is Dead or
Mm.
for I saw that you were soundtracking a short film
hmm
before the pandemic which didn't come to be, but
Yeah.
how do you find that like composing for a film and writing for like your own album differ in that writing process?
Um, I guess with a film you have a prompt, you know what I mean? You're trying to serve the visual that's already there and please somebody else's vision of their project that they're working on, which is kind of way easier than just coming up with music out of thin air that just has to exist on its own, not in support of a project or an idea that somebody else gave you to work on. Um, but yeah, I mean, my partner Julie does all the artwork. The camera's not going to see it, but the original "Music Is Dead" painting is up there. And now we sort of collaborate. She starts working on the album covers as soon as I'm working on the music, and that kind of like propels me forward to like see what the visual aspect of this is going to be. Um, yeah,
Nice. So, how do you? I want to talk to you a little bit more about the writing and recording
sure.
process. We just saw a little sneak peek at your
Yeah,
recording room there.
yeah.
Got all kinds of instruments in. So do you write and record all instruments by yourself for these albums?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, it's I there's a bit more collaboration these days, but it's much easier for me to just do it myself. I have given myself all the time in the world to work on it, basically, and other musicians' schedules are a lot more limited than mine. So it's mostly out of necessity. I want to make a record with, especially the new lineup of my band. I love so much working with these guys, but we just never have the time. Like the way that I make records now, it's like we would need like a month straight of nobody has to work, nobody has to play with any other bands. Like we just have to do this for a month and then it'll be done. But yeah, it's more out of necessity than anything else. And then if I can't play something that I want to hear on the song, then I'll either adapt the song or work out a time to get somebody else in on it. But
Yeah.
so far that hasn't been too much of an issue. I have another new record coming out next month that I just ended up doing all by myself again, even though Music is Dead was kind of meant to be the last one that was really out of necessity. Like I couldn't really even see my bandmates for all of 2020, 2021. Like our time together was very limited. So that was like truly the pandemic record. And now it's just kind of like everybody's so busy. The guys in my band are so talented that they're highly in demand with other projects around town. So yeah, it's just I don't know. It's easier for me to do stuff without having to talk to other people about it. You
Yeah.
know? And if it's kind of limited by my own ability on whatever instrument too,
Yeah.
which is kind of cool. That it's like, well, I know that the song can only fit within these parameters because I can't play beyond those parameters. You know.
So that's something that I'm interested in knowing too. What is your favorite instrument to record for, and then what is one that you kind of like? You're like, oh no, I don't know how I'm gonna write this. I don't know how I'm gonna
True.
do this part.
True. I mean, my favorite one to record is drums. That's kind of
Yeah.
like the impetus for the whole project going back like the 6-7 years I've been doing this. Is just I love playing drums and I love figuring out how to make them work in a recording. Like how to mic them is like its own challenge, and the room that you're in limits you a lot. But limitations are like what breeds the creativity, you know. Drums are probably the hardest and the thing I spend the most time on, but also the most fun. The ones that I mean, a lot of these songs are written on piano, but tracking piano is really hard for me sometimes. Like I want it to be very precise. I don't want to have to like punch in or overdub a lot of stuff. I want to be able to play it
Yeah.
all the way through. So that's the thing I probably spend the most time on. If a song calls for piano, I'll spend hours, days sometimes practicing it and tracking it over and over and over and over. But yeah, I don't really. I mean, I get a kick out of doing all of it. I kind of like
Yeah.
lose myself. Like it's like now it's time to play bass. I'm like, okay, now I'm the bass player in the band that's playing this song, you know, and like
Yeah.
try to put yourself in the mentality of being somebody else tracking that part. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. It's very psychological, you know. It's very psychological producing a band in the studio and having to observe all the different personalities and stuff and how each person reacts to tracking their part. But then when you're doing it yourself, you're like it's fully inward. It's like a very zen kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really cool insight. So I also wanted to talk to you about the collected improvisations and meditation music.
Sure.
Read that you wrote like in the description it's non-canon music.
Yeah.
So what to you is non-canon music, and what kind of draws you to releasing that for the world?
I think a good example going back to Honey, like when I did that, I was thinking of that as non-canon,
Yeah.
but I put the Nightmare Band name on it, so I guess it has become canon now to me. But a lot of the Bandcamp stuff is like, I just want to keep showing the fans like where I'm at right now. You know what I mean? It takes a long time to put out a vinyl record, and I wish I could be doing that. Like there's a new record every 6 months or whatever, you know, but it's just the turnaround is not there for that. So yeah, I mean the improvisation stuff, it's literally just off the top of my head. A lot of those sounds come from like recording like a guitar part, say, and then turning that into a digital like MIDI part, and then reworking it on different fake instruments, and then putting it back in and learning it, and then playing
Yeah.
along to that, doing stuff at different speeds. So yeah, it's yeah, the improvisation stuff is very just stream of consciousness and just to see what happens, because it takes so much effort and so much thought to make like a real record, you know.
Yeah. Mm.
So that's why I would say it's non-canon. It's just, it's not planned at all, you know.
Yeah.
And stuff, if there's any sort of lore going on behind any of this,
Mm.
it's because there's a lot of thought put into it, and this stuff is not that at all.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah.
So as we're Loyola's Chicago radio station, and we wanted to talk to you about college radio. Do you have any
Yeah.
experience working with college radio?
Yeah.
Getting involved with it, or even on either side of it, working for, working
Absolutely,
with.
yeah. I wasn't in college long enough to get involved with it, but I imagine I would. I was a media studies
Yeah.
major for the 2 semesters that I was in college. But we've done some things with local stations here, like doing live broadcasts and
Yeah.
filming and stuff, and I love it. I mean, I love radio so much, and I love what radio has become in the modern era too. I listen to podcasts more than I listen to music probably at this point. Listening to music is kind of like feels like a chore sometimes, because especially I've been producing other bands a lot so much lately that I only hear the technical aspects of things sometimes, you know. So I love talk radio. I love listening to podcasts. I love college radio, and I'm glad that it's still a thing. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And so I'm happy to do this. I love college radio.
Awesome. So my next question is about you used to live in Michigan, and now you've made your way down to Austin. You said for about 10 years now.
About 10 years. Yeah.
What kind of drew you to Austin, and how'd you get down here?
So that's all down to one band, basically. I don't know if you guys have heard of Holy Wave. They've
Yeah.
been playing this week a little bit. They've been around since, gosh, I don't remember, but they started in El Paso, moved to Austin, and they, for a period of time, were kind of like these like ambassadors of Austin. They toured and played in Grand Rapids when I lived there, and stayed at my house for the weekend, and we kind of became friends and stuff. And then after, I think it was probably about 6 months later, I was like getting fed up with Michigan. I didn't want to live through another winter up there. I was like, well, I know these 5 guys from Austin at least, and ended up moving down here, becoming friends with them. They introduced me to a bunch of people. Ended up playing drums in this band Lake of Fire, who had been associated with Holy Wave in El Paso before, and all these people had kind of moved here to work on music. And yeah, I just found my niche, and through them I ended up getting a job at Hotel Vegas, and that was really the impetus for like, now I'm like in the scene here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I know all the musicians. I can see what what genres are being explored, and like where the scene is headed. And so I mean, it's all thanks to those guys that I ended up here at all. And
Nice.
they're still some of my best friends, and I love all the music they make, and super inspirational dudes.
So this one, it really interests me. Aside from other music, what inspires your art? Like whether it be like art that you're inspired by, or like real life things that inspire you.
Yeah. I mean, I'm very inspired by, all fantasy and sci-fi, which I'm sure it comes through in the music a lot. At some point, you can get a shot of my bookshelf. I think that would be a pretty good place
Yeah.
to start. Dune has been huge for me. There's little Dune references sprinkled throughout all of my records, and Lord of the Rings, obviously. A lot of it comes. I mean, I want my music to provide the experience that those books and movies provided for me when I was a kid. Like, I grew up in I say I'm from Grand Rapids. I grew up north, about 2 hours north of Grand Rapids, in the middle of nowhere, basically. McBain, Michigan. It's a town of 600 people, and all of them are dairy farmers, pretty much. So for me, it was like, I just always wanted to escape, and like live these
Yeah.
grand adventures in my mind. And I feel like the modern world kind of closes us in now into our own little middle of nowhere. And I want my music to be like an escape from that. And so, yeah, I look to the books and movies that I grew up loving. I want it to be a fantasy of some sort. But also, I mean, fantasy and sci-fi has always been sort of like a barometer of where society's at.
Yeah.
So as much as it is being an escape, it's also like a way to look at what we're experiencing from a different angle. And Yeah, that's the biggest driving force for me. Like I'll sit and read. Right now I'm reading Children of Dune, and like I can get through 2 chapters maybe before I'm like I have to start writing. You know. Yeah, that's the driving force for sure.
Nice. So yeah, we were talking earlier about how you play all these different instruments for the records. What's an instrument that you maybe just learned for this new record coming out, or one that you're interested in learning how to play to
Yeah.
implement on future records?
Well, I just got gifted an alto saxophone. That's the biggest thing. I've played wind instruments a lot. Obviously, I've played the flute.
Yeah.
I grew up playing trumpet, but I've never really gotten into reeds a whole lot, and so that's the next step for me. I don't know if I'll ever get to a point where I can actually play it on a record, but yeah, I mean the newest record has a lot of guitar. It's more guitar centric than Music Is Dead, I would say.
Yeah.
And yeah, I didn't really learn anything that new for it. We did try some new techniques, and this one is as with Music Is Dead. I collaborated with Dylan Fernandez, who he was the bass player for Holy Wave for a while, and then he played synth with us, and now he's playing bass for us.
Nice.
And he's also a brilliant producer, and yeah, he did some production on previous Holy Wave albums and stuff, and he's going to school for music production right now too. So we're kind of like every time we make a record, we're like, man, like listening back on the old stuff, I didn't know what I was doing at all, and now like we have a whole new insight on how to record different instruments and how to mix stuff, and so I think that's the biggest improvement is just the overall quality of sound. Like I feel like the instrument I learned to play this record is my computer. Like,
Yeah.
if you saw my studio, there's not a lot of analog equipment. Like, we do all that stuff kind of at the end, put it all on tape at the end. And I run stuff on a real shoestring budget. Like, I have a
Yeah.
lot of instruments, but I don't have a lot of microphones. I don't have a lot of vintage gear, recording gear. So yeah, I just really figured out how to use my studio a little bit better, how to mix a little bit better. It's all yeah, it's all pretty amateur stuff, but we try and elevate it.
Nice. So I got a couple rapid fire questions for
Let's
you here
go.
at the end. What's your favorite venue to perform at here in Austin?
Ooh, I will give you 2
Yeah.
because I will get flack if I if I leave anybody out. But Hotel Vegas is
Of course.
my home. Like that was I've spent the night at that place before. Like I used to be there every single night. It's my favorite place to play for sure. As far as like the crowd goes and the vibe and like I never feel nervous there. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't matter what the show is. It's like this is like I run this place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's my feeling. But then as far as like sound goes and just having like the perfect on stage experience, Mohawk is the best
Yeah.
place for that. The outside stage at Mohawk, like the guys that work there are so attentive and like they listen to you and they want you to have the best sound. Like there's moments on stage there where I just feel like I'm listening to a record of us playing. Like
Yeah.
it's just so crystal clear and like it feels so good. I got to fill in on bass with Grandmaster there yesterday.
Nice.
And yeah, the sound is just it's perfect.
What's a city that you haven't played yet and you'd really like to get to soon?
Chicago.
Yeah. No way.
Yeah, it's insane that it hasn't worked out yet. And every time we're on tour, people are like, "What? No Chicago?" I'm like, I wish it was up to me because I want to play Chicago so bad. I've played Chicago in previous bands, but with Nightmare Band, we've never made it happen. We played last year. We played Milwaukee Psych Fest,
Okay. Yeah.
which is run by my adopted older brother Andrew Shelp. And so it's like whenever we're in Milwaukee, it's like, why are we not also playing Chicago? This is
Yeah.
ridiculous, but it just hasn't happened yet. So hopefully this year it'll come through.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nah, my last question for you is what's next for you and the band?
Yes, we have a new record. I don't think I've officially said the name of it anywhere yet, but it's called The Predicament of Being Trapped Inside a Head. And it's going to be technically Nolan Potter's solo record, but there was some collaboration from the band. We've been working on a record for about 2 years now that the opportunity hasn't come up for that one to come out yet. I got this opportunity to make a record with there's this coffee shop in town called Try Hard Coffee. I don't know if y'all have been there yet, but you should check it out
Yeah.
while you're here. And they have an imprint associated with the coffee shop on Spaceflight Records, which is another local label. And they have this series where every month, every other month, they try to put out a record from a local band that's pressed here in Austin, like all done in house. And yeah, so they put me on the list to do that, and it's this super rare opportunity to get to make a record and have it come out like 2 3 months later, which just
Yeah.
doesn't happen anymore. And so I was like, I've been slaving over this one record since we finished Music Is Dead.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm not quite ready for that one to come out yet. So I was like, I'm just gonna start from scratch, do a new record, finish it in 2 months, put it out 3 months later, and just show people like this is where I'm at right at this moment, you know.
Yeah.
And so I'm really excited for that. We haven't done any official announcement. We're waiting for South by to be over to
Mm.
kind of have everything die down and then be like, this is the new thing that's happening. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm very excited for that to come out. We're gonna start playing songs from that record for our South by gigs this week. So
Sweet.
yeah,
Yeah, excited for that. And
absolutely.
yeah, thanks so much for sitting down with us. We really
Totally.
appreciate
Thanks for
it.
coming over. It's been a lot of fun.